What would you do if your husband, the man you'd built your entire life with, betrayed you in the worst way imaginable? Not just with anyone, but with your own daughter's best friend, and then got her pregnant. This is my story. A story of betrayal, heartbreak, and the quiet kind of strength that can change everything. I'm Claire, and I want you to hear exactly how I went from broken to free. I never thought betrayal would come knocking on my own front door. Not in the middle of a quiet Tuesday morning, with the smell of fresh coffee in the kitchen and sunlight spilling across the hardwood floors I'd polished just the night before. But that's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't knock. It kicks the door in, rips through your life, and leaves everything in splinters. I'm Claire Matthews, 42 years old. I've lived in Willow Creek, a suburban bubble just outside Chicago, for over a decade. I plan events for a living. Weddings, charity galas, the occasional over-the-top Sweet 16, which means I know how to make beautiful memories happen. Ironically, I never thought I'd have to plan for the ugliest day of my own life. My husband, Daniel, was the high school sweetheart everyone envied me for. Tall, charming, the kind of man who could make the grocery store cashier blush without trying. We'd been married 22 years. We had 2 kids, Ella, 19, home from her first year at college for the summer, and Jacob, 13, who still leaves Legos on the stairs no matter how many times I threaten to throw them out. And then there was Maddie, Ella's best friend since middle school. She'd practically grown up in our house, eating my pancakes, watching movies with Jacob, calling me second mom. She'd even stayed with us for a few weeks last year after a fight with her parents. I never thought twice about her being around. Until that morning. It started with Ella. She came into the kitchen, pale, eyes glassy. She didn't sit, didn't touch the breakfast I'd made. "Mom," her voice cracked, "you need to see this." She set her phone on the counter. My name wasn't on the text thread, but I knew Daniel's number instantly. I'd memorized it long before we even had kids. "Daniel, I can't wait to feel you again. Last night wasn't enough. Maddie, I think I'm late. What if it's yours?" My heart stopped. It's cliché to say it felt like the ground disappeared beneath me, but it really did. The kitchen walls seemed to tilt, the morning light turning into a harsh glare. "Tell me this isn't real," I whispered, but Ella's face told me everything. And then came the sound, Daniel's car pulling into the driveway. He walked in like it was any other morning, loosening his tie, smiling at me like the man I'd spent my life with. "Hey, beautiful, coffee ready?" I looked at him, really looked, and for the first time I didn't see my husband. I saw a stranger wearing his face. "Daniel," I said, my voice steady in a way that surprised even me. "If I cheated on you with Jacob's soccer coach and got pregnant, how would you feel?" His smile faltered. "What kind of question is that?" I slid the phone across the counter. He glanced down and the blood drained from his face. Ella stood frozen, tears slipping down her cheeks. Jacob's footsteps thudded upstairs, blissfully unaware, for now. Daniel opened his mouth, probably to lie, but I raised my hand. "Don't. Not here. Not in front of her." The silence between us was deafening, and in that silence I knew one thing for certain. Our marriage, our family, the life I'd built brick by brick, had just shattered. If you've ever been blindsided by the person you trusted most, keep listening. Because what I did next didn't just protect my children, it changed everything. Daniel's lips moved, but I didn't hear him. My ears were ringing, my heartbeat thudding so loud it drowned out every excuse he tried to shape. I turned to Ella. "Where is she?" Her eyes darted away. "She's at her apartment, the one over on Maple Street, 2 blocks away." Maddie didn't live with her parents anymore. She'd moved into that little complex last fall. I'd helped her carry in boxes. I'd stocked her fridge on her first night there. And now I had to walk into that same space, knowing she'd used it to betray me. I grabbed my keys. Daniel stepped forward. "Claire, please, let me—" "Stay away from me." I didn't yell. I didn't need to. My voice carried the weight of every sleepless night I didn't know I'd been cheated on. "Mom?" Jacob's voice floated down from the top of the stairs. He was in his soccer shorts, holding a cereal bowl. "What's going on?" I forced a smile that felt like splintered glass in my cheeks. "Nothing you need to worry about, buddy. Finish your breakfast." He hesitated, eyes flicking between me and Daniel. He could feel the tension. Kids always can. But I couldn't let him see the truth. Not yet. Ella grabbed her hoodie. "I'm coming with you." Daniel moved to block us, but I brushed past him. My hands were shaking as I slid into the driver's seat, Ella climbing in beside me. The drive was silent except for the faint hum of the tires on asphalt. I gripped the wheel so tightly my knuckles whitened. When we pulled into the Maple Street lot, Ella reached over and touched my arm. "Mom, please don't scream. Just don't let her win by seeing you lose it." I nodded, even though inside I wanted to do far worse than scream. Maddie's door was painted the same muted blue as all the others. I knocked once, firmly. No answer. I knocked again, harder. Finally, the door cracked open. She looked startled, but not guilty. Her hair was up, no makeup, wearing a hoodie that I recognized. One Daniel had worn last winter. "Claire, is everything okay?" She tilted her head, feigning innocence. I stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. "You tell me, Maddie, is everything okay? Or should we talk about the fact you're sleeping with my husband?" Ella's arms crossed tightly across her chest. Maddie blinked, then her jaw set. "I didn't mean for it to happen." I cut her off. "Stop! Don't insult me with that tired line." Her eyes darted toward Ella. "I didn't want you to find out this way." "Oh?" My voice dripped with sarcasm. "And what way did you imagine I'd find out?" "At the baby shower?" Her lips parted, shocked. "You know?" "You're 21, I said, my voice low. "You were my daughter's best friend. You ate at my table, slept under my roof, and called me second mom. And you repaid that by destroying my family." Maddie flinched, but then something flickered in her eyes. Defiance. "Daniel loves me. You're just bitter because you're older." Ella gasped, but I didn't move toward her. I didn't slap her, didn't shout. Instead, I stepped back and smiled. "You think you've won, Maddie? You haven't even begun to see what losing looks like." We left her standing in the doorway, her hand drifting protectively over her stomach. Back in the car, Ella whispered, "What are you going to do?" I started the engine. "Protect you and Jacob, and make sure your father never has the chance to hurt us again." Revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes it starts with silence, with waiting, with letting them think they've gotten away with it. That's when the real power shift begins. When people think of revenge, they picture screaming matches, dramatic exits, maybe throwing a drink in someone's face. I've planned weddings for brides who handled breakups like a fireworks finale. But me? I'm a planner. And planners know the most beautiful events are never rushed. The same applies to taking apart a man's lies. For the next few days, I played my role. I cooked dinner. I asked Jacob about school. I made polite small talk with Daniel, even kissed his cheek when he left for work. He looked relieved, maybe even smug, thinking I'd decided to forgive him or at least look the other way. Good, let him believe that. Because while he was busy pretending nothing happened, I was busy collecting everything I needed. The first step was my phone. I logged into our shared iCloud account and quietly downloaded months of text messages and call logs. The conversations between him and Maddie were worse than I imagined. Graphic, giddy, like teenagers in the throes of a summer fling. Only this fling had a due date and a crib. Next was the bank. I'd managed our accounts for years, so Daniel didn't think twice when I logged in. That's where I found it. Cash withdrawals, hotel charges, and one particularly galling purchase, a diamond necklace from a jewelry store we'd once gone to together. Not for me. I screenshotted everything, saving it to a hidden folder. Then came the cameras. Most people forget that Ring doorbells store footage online for weeks. I didn't. I combed through clips from the months Maddie had stayed with us, including one of Daniel kissing her in the driveway while I was out buying groceries. That clip was my crown jewel. One night after dinner, Jacob was in his room building a Lego spaceship, Ella was on the couch scrolling through TikTok, and Daniel was in the shower. I sat at the kitchen table, flipping through a notebook. On one side were dates and times, on the other, copies of every damning receipt. I was building a timeline, not just for me, but for the lawyer I planned to see. Ella wandered in, glancing over my shoulder. "You're really doing it, huh?" I met her eyes. "I'm not letting him walk away with my dignity or hurt you and your brother any more than he already has." Her voice trembled. "What about Jacob? When will you tell him?" I sighed. "When I have to, not before. He still thinks his dad hung the moon, and I won't be the one to shatter that for him. Daniel's choices will do that all by themselves." Later that night, I lay awake listening to Daniel's breathing beside me. My mind wasn't on the man in my bed. It was on my son 2 rooms over. I pictured Jacob's face the day he'd find out the truth. I couldn't control that heartbreak, but I could control the safety net he'd fall into afterward. And that's when my plan shifted from revenge to survival. Not just for me, but for both of my kids. The most dangerous kind of betrayed woman isn't the one who yells. It's the one who waits, watches, and writes everything down. The office was tucked between a florist and a bakery downtown, the kind of discreet location I appreciated. No one in Willow Creek would think twice about seeing me walk in there. Probably assume I was planning another fundraiser. Inside, the walls were painted a calm, sage green, the air faintly scented with vanilla. A receptionist with kind eyes offered me coffee, which I declined. My stomach was already in knots. When the lawyer came out, she introduced herself as Samantha Hale, mid-40s, sharp navy suit, the kind of woman who could slice through lies with a single raised eyebrow. We sat in her office, and I slid my folder across the desk. This is everything. Texts, bank records, security footage. My husband is having an affair with my daughter's 21-year-old best friend. She's pregnant. I want out. Samantha flipped through the evidence, her expression unreadable. "Claire, this is airtight. In Illinois, marital misconduct doesn't usually impact division of assets, but in your case, the age proximity, the betrayal of trust, the emotional distress. We can use this." "What about custody?" I asked. "Jacob's 13. I don't want him caught in the middle." She nodded. "Given your documentation and the fact you've been the primary caregiver, you're in a strong position. Shared custody is likely, but you'll control the environment when he's with you." I exhaled slowly, some of the tension in my shoulders easing. We talked strategy. She advised me not to confront Daniel further. Not yet. Let him think you're working through it. That way we can secure the financial side before he realizes what's coming. It was a strange thing, sitting there calmly plotting the end of a 22-year marriage like it was another event to plan. But that's how I survived. Compartmentalizing, turning pain into a to-do list. Before I left, Samantha leaned forward. "One more thing. Do not, under any circumstances, tell Maddie or her family you're filing. We don't want them influencing him before we've made our moves." I nodded. They won't hear it from me. Back in my car, I didn't drive straight home. I parked outside the elementary school Jacob used to attend, the one where Daniel used to volunteer for field day. The playground was empty now, just swings creaking in the wind. I thought about the man Daniel used to be, or at least the man I thought he was, and I realized something. That man never existed. The one who would betray his daughter, his wife, and his own family. That's who he truly was. And I wasn't going to let that man write the final chapter of my story. That night, over dinner, Daniel smiled at me like nothing was wrong. Jacob told him about his science project, and Ella barely spoke. I played my part, even laughing at one of Daniel's dumb work stories. Inside, I was counting the days until I could hand him the divorce papers. You can't fight a storm head-on. Sometimes you have to let it pass right over you while you quietly build a shelter strong enough to outlast it. By late September, the weather in Willow Creek had cooled enough that the leaves were turning, and the neighborhood smelled faintly of wood smoke. It had been almost 3 weeks since I'd sat in Samantha Hale's office. 3 weeks of careful smiles, polite nods, and pretending I didn't notice my husband's late nights or the faint scent of Maddie's perfume on his shirts. But I wasn't pretending for his sake. I was pretending for mine. And for the timing. One evening, I was in the kitchen making chicken piccata when Daniel walked in. He leaned against the counter watching me in that old, familiar way. "You've been different lately," he said. "Calmer." I plated the chicken without looking at him. Different how? I don't know. Less angry. Almost like you've forgiven me. I smiled faintly, setting the plates down. "Is that what you think?" He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I'm saying maybe we can work through this. For the kids. For us." I finally looked at him, tilting my head. "Daniel, if you caught me sleeping with one of Jacob's coaches and I told you I was pregnant, would you work through it?" He froze, blinking. "That's not the same." "Why not? It's betrayal. It's humiliation. It's breaking the trust of your own child." I leaned closer, my tone still calm. "Tell me, would you still look me in the eyes and say, 'Let's work through it'?" His jaw tightened. "You're twisting this." I shrugged, turning back to the stove. Maybe, or maybe I'm just holding up a mirror. At dinner, Jacob chattered about his soccer game while Ella pushed her food around in silence. Daniel tried to draw her into conversation, but she answered in short, clipped sentences. The distance between them was widening, and I could see him starting to notice. After Jacob went upstairs, Daniel lingered in the living room. "You're not going to keep punishing me forever, are you?" "Punishing you?" I let out a soft laugh. "Daniel, I'm not punishing you. I'm just observing." "Observing what?" "Whether you're the man I married or the man who thought it was acceptable to ruin his daughter's trust for a fling." His mouth opened, but no words came. He finally grabbed his jacket and left without saying where he was going. Later that night, Ella knocked on my bedroom door. "He's getting nervous, Mom." "Good," I said, slipping my notebook back into the drawer. "Nervous people make mistakes, and I need him to make one more." Reverse psychology isn't about making them confess. It's about making them question their own footing until they can't tell which way is up. By October, Maddie's pregnancy was impossible to hide. Word had started to trickle through the neighborhood grapevine. Hushed conversations at the grocery store, averted eyes at the coffee shop. Daniel was jumpy, his usual easy swagger replaced with glances over his shoulder. He came home earlier some nights, later on others, always with flimsy excuses. I let him talk. The less I pushed, the more he filled the silence with nervous chatter. One Thursday afternoon, Jacob had a late soccer practice. Ella was at the library. I was alone in the house when Daniel's phone buzzed on the counter. It wasn't locked. He still trusted me that much. The screen lit up with a text from Maddie. "We need to talk. It's not yours." My breath caught. Not his? A second message followed almost immediately. "Delete this, now." I took a photo of the screen before the notification faded. My hands were steady, calmer than they'd been in weeks. 2 hours later, Daniel came home, smiling like nothing was wrong. "Hey, where's Jacob?" "Practice." I poured myself a cup of tea. "Daniel, I saw your phone earlier. From Maddie." He froze, his smile faltering. "You went through my phone?" I sipped my tea. It was sitting there. I didn't need to go through anything. The messages popped up right in front of me. His jaw worked, but he didn't speak. I set the cup down. So, not yours? Is that what she meant? He tried to recover. She's just confused. She's stressed. And, Daniel, I interrupted softly, you've been telling yourself you're in control of this mess. But what happens when the girl you blew up our family for decides she doesn't need you anymore? When she takes her baby, or someone else's baby, and walks away? He stared at me, his face pale. You're enjoying this. No, I smiled faintly. I'm learning from it. That night, after everyone was asleep, I added the screenshots to my growing evidence file. Not only did I now have proof of the affair, I also had leverage. Leverage that made Daniel look like a fool as well as a liar. The next morning, I emailed the file to Samantha Hale with the subject line, "Final Nail." Her reply was swift. "We're ready to proceed." Sometimes you don't have to destroy them. You just have to let them build their own gallows and then hand them the rope. When you live in a tight-knit suburb like Willow Creek, reputation is currency. And Daniel had been spending his like it was endless. By the time I set the plan in motion, the leaves had turned gold and crimson. The annual neighborhood fall festival was coming up, the same event Daniel and I had chaired together for the past 7 years. This year, he was still listed as co-chair, which made it the perfect stage. That Saturday, the town square was buzzing. Kids darted between pumpkin carving stations and caramel apple stands. Parents mingled, clutching coffee cups, trading gossip in low voices. I arrived early, smiling and waving like everything was normal. Daniel was already there, setting up the raffle booth. Maddie hovered nearby, wearing a loose sweater that didn't quite hide her rounded belly. People glanced, whispered. At noon, the mayor took the mic to thank the event organizers, Daniel and me, and invited us both up to say a few words. I stepped up first, microphone in hand, heart pounding. "Thank you all for coming," I began, my voice steady. "This festival has always been about community, about coming together as friends and neighbors." I glanced at Daniel, and sometimes about holding each other accountable. A ripple went through the crowd. "I won't keep you long," I continued. "I just want to share a short video to thank my co-chair for his years of dedication." On cue, the big screen behind us lit up. It started with photos of past festivals, smiling families, kids in costumes, Daniel and me laughing together. Then slowly the images shifted. Screenshots of texts, bank records, a clip from our driveway camera. Daniel kissing Maddie. Finally, the text message from Maddie. "It's not yours." Gasps, murmurs. A woman near the front clapped a hand over her mouth. I handed the mic to Daniel. "Your turn." He just stood there, frozen, as the whispers swelled. That evening, with the festival still buzzing behind me, I handed him a manila envelope outside the town hall. "What's this?" he asked, his voice low. "Divorce papers," I said. "Consider it. The end of our joint ventures." He looked like he might argue, but Maddie appeared at his side, eyes darting nervously at the crowd still milling around. I turned and walked away, my heels clicking on the pavement, Ella and Jacob waiting for me by the car. The most powerful way to end a story isn't with a scream. It's with a microphone, a crowd, and the truth. The Monday after the fall festival, Willow Creek felt different. The sidewalks were quieter, the small talk shorter. People still smiled at me in the coffee shop, but behind every polite nod was the same unspoken message. We saw, we know. Daniel didn't come home that night, or the night after. By Wednesday, his lawyer had reached out. The divorce was moving forward. Fast. Samantha Hale met me in her office, her expression satisfied. "He's agreeing to shared custody of Jacob. You'll have primary residential rights. Given your documentation, he's not contesting." I exhaled slowly. Good. I don't want Jacob in the middle more than he has to be. Samantha's tone softened. "Claire, this settlement is better than most women get in these circumstances. You'll keep the house until Jacob graduates, plus alimony and half the business profits." It wasn't about the money, but I wasn't naive. Stability mattered, for both kids. That night, I sat Jacob down in the living room. Ella was at her friend's apartment, giving us space. "Buddy," I began, "you know how things have been tense lately?" He nodded, eyes wary. "Your dad and I are going to live in separate houses," I said carefully. "We both love you. That will never change." He frowned. "Is it because of Maddie?" My heart twisted. "Why do you say that?" "I heard Ella talking on the phone," he admitted, voice small. "I'm not dumb, Mom. I just didn't want it to be true." I pulled him into a hug. "None of this is your fault, or Ella's. Your dad made choices, and now we're making choices to protect ourselves." He didn't cry, but he held on to me longer than usual. A month later, the papers were signed. Daniel moved into a rental on the edge of town with Maddie. I didn't ask how that was going. I didn't need to. Instead, I poured my energy into the kids and my work. I booked 3 new event clients. I planted tulips in the front yard for spring. I bought Jacob a telescope for his birthday, and we spent an entire night on the back deck spotting constellations. Ella began smiling more. She joined a study group at college and stopped flinching at the sound of Daniel's name. The first time I saw Maddie after the divorce was at Jacob's soccer game. She looked tired, her hair pulled back, a toddler balanced on her hip. Daniel stood beside her, his face drawn. They walked toward me after the game, maybe to make small talk, maybe to save face. I smiled politely, then turned as Jacob ran into my arms. "Ready to go, champ?" I asked. "Yep." He grinned, waving briefly at his dad before taking my hand. I looked back at Maddie just once. "Take care," I said, and walked away. That night, I stood in my kitchen, the same one where my world had collapsed months before, only now it felt lighter, safer, mine. In the end, I didn't need to destroy him. I just needed to walk away with my kids, my dignity, and my life intact. It's strange how life reshapes itself. One day, you're a wife, a partner, half of a picture everyone else thinks is perfect. The next, you're standing alone in that same frame and realizing it's more beautiful without the extra shadow. 6 months after the divorce, the tulips I planted in the fall bloomed. Bright yellows and deep reds lined the walkway to my front door, a silent reminder that something vibrant can grow after everything else dies. The house felt different now. No heavy silences, no second-guessing every late text or hushed phone call. Just laughter, music in the kitchen, the hum of a life I'd rebuilt piece by piece. Ella was thriving at college, calling me every Sunday night to tell me about her classes and new friends. Jacob had settled into the custody routine, and though I knew he still carried some hurt, I could see him healing in his own way. One Saturday morning, I was setting up for a small backyard brunch when I caught a glimpse of myself in the patio door. For a moment, I didn't recognize the woman staring back, not because she looked older, but because she looked free. The betrayal that once defined me was now just a chapter, not the whole story. And Daniel? He'd faded into the background of my life, like a character written out of the script. I didn't need updates on his new life with Maddie. I already knew the ending to that story. I tell you all this because maybe you're standing where I stood. Maybe you've been lied to, betrayed, humiliated. And maybe you think the only way forward is to burn everything to the ground. But sometimes, the real revenge is quietly rebuilding until your happiness is louder than their lies. If you've ever been betrayed, you know the rage, the hurt, the temptation to burn it all down. But sometimes, the most powerful revenge is simply living a life so full and peaceful they can't stand to watch. So tell me in the comments, would you have chosen revenge or would you have chosen peace? If my story gave you even a spark of strength today, hit that like button and subscribe to Flame and Fate Chronicles. It's free, and it means the world to me. Until next time, take care of your heart.